Jeffrey M. Pemstein, Division President, Homes by Towne, Sacramento.
So I grew up in the foothills above Pasadena, so it was kind of a young boys playground, lots of hiking. There was an old gold mine about a mile up a canyon behind our house, chasing down rattlesnakes and tarantulas. And then 10 minutes away, you're in the Rose Bowl watching, UCLA play Ohio State. So kind of the best of a lot of different worlds. I originally studied to be a diplomat and was really geared towards trying to become an ambassador somewhere. And somewhere along the way, I figured out that somebody's got to give a lot of money to some president, and that's how you're going to get appointed to be an ambassador. So, I was always interested in land development, home building. My dad dabbled in some of that stuff as well. So he owned a bunch of apartments out in Ontario, California. So he would send me out there once a month to meet with the property manager. And then, he had me working on various real estate holdings. I spent a summer hot mopping roofs. That was a really good inducement to going to college. And so from that, I had started in diplomacy and quickly got into this area called urban and regional planning, building cities, coolest thing in the world. And that's where I sort of decided, okay, so something in that area is where I'm going to gravitate to. In the late 80s, I moved from Orange County up to Northern California to open an office for an engineering company. Got this operation up and running after about 3 years, and then two things happened. Orange County went bankrupt, and the state of California cut off all of its outside contracts for a period of time. So the company I worked for decided to contract, and I received a phone call from the CEO of the company saying, Jeff, you can take a transfer to Las Vegas or Phoenix, or you can find other gainful employment in Sacramento. Well, so here I had built, a book of business, and I said, look, why don't you just sell me the business that you had me start up here for you? We'll fulfill all your contracts and make sure your reputation is whole, and go along fat, dumb, and happy, and either we make something happen or we don't. Well, so lo and behold, he thought that was a good idea, and about 2 weeks later, he sold us this business that I had started with one other guy, and we took that and built it from about 6 people to about 120 people. I always think there's an opportunity. Even when you hear the worst thing in the world, you go, okay, so, that could happen, but maybe there's 4 or 5 different directions we could take. And so in that case, I said, look, you know what? I worked too hard to build that business. And there was a lot of good clients and people who were relying on my service. And rather than disappoint them and lose all this hard work, pick up and see what you do with it. What's the worst thing that could happen? So Christine and I met in our working environment. It was shortly after about 9 years that I asked her to marry me. And I think her reaction was she thought I was having a heart attack, because I started sweating and my hand was shaking, and I think it took her several weeks to figure out that I was actually asking her to marry me. She kept saying, is that what you really were asking? Are you sure about that? And then anyway, long story short, eventually we wound up getting married. My kids, I have 4 of them. 3 of the 4 kids have actually worked in the company at various times. My 2 daughters both worked as a receptionist. Could never get them into being in the business, and that's fine, so they're both doing other things. My oldest son actually works for the company today, and he's been with us now for about 1.5 years, and he's working construction, which is good. Great way to learn the business from the bottom up. And then my youngest son is still in college back on the East Coast. Rock and roll is definitely therapy for me. So I grew up in the shadow of the Van Halens, and they, David Lee Roth went to my high school. His dad was my family's optometrist, and they used to play in the quad at our high school at lunchtime. And they were awful. I mean, I just remember they were really awful. Obviously, things have changed over the years. So, when you grow up with that influence, every other guy or gal in my high school wanted to be a rock star. Somewhere along the lines, I figured out that I'm just not that good. So that's where it becomes therapy. And as I get older, I use it more for that, If I need to think through something, I've got a music room in my house, I'll go sit there and, pluck on an instrument and, kind of think through things. When I became the chair of the North State Building Industry Association in 2010, brought the band out. And so the band played for 2 hours, and we kind of rocked it, The business is Homes by Towne. Town Development of Sacramento. And we're a land development home building business. We're headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, part of a larger organization called Zilber Limited. And I'm one of 7 division presidents throughout the company. I get to, do everything from help acquire the land to get it approved for building, help design the houses, help with the sales program, bid out the construction, all the way through to warranty and making sure we have happy customers. I see my role on a day-to-day basis as trying to manage chaos and bring a level of certainty to what is, for the most part, general uncertainty. We select more what I call niche projects, areas that are maybe slightly underserved or they're on the periphery of a larger growth area, and we try to find properties that can feed off of more traditional master plan communities. Probably the biggest breakout project that I thought was going to be the biggest breakout project was the one I got fired from. And I actually never completed it. I think it got built eventually. And that was a project down in Madera County many years ago I was working on. It was called Rio Mesa. About halfway through it, there was kind of a change in the ownership structure. And so this new ownership group wanted to bring in another group of people. And they wanted to relegate me to a lesser role. And I wasn't super comfortable with that. And so I let my mind be known. Apparently, in a moment of passion, I stood up on a conference room table and looked down at what was soon to be the new project manager taking my role and said that I will not allow you to take the food out of my children's mouth. Apparently that's not a diplomatic way of doing business. And so I would consider that to be a huge breakout moment, which molded a lot of what I do today. Giving back is a huge part of why I'm in business to begin with. I had a family that was very charitable. Whether it's with your time or with your money or with your knowledge or your contacts and connections. Yeah, giving back is every bit a part of home building. You build houses for people to live in, and your community's got to be healthy, and to do that, you've got to give something back. I don't think I could have been selected for the Hall of Fame if I wasn't surrounded by and supported by a great group of people. A great group of professionals, whether it's the folks I work with, whether it's the folks that I'm associated with through the Building Industry Association, the state, the federal, the local level, all of those people together, as well as the support of my family and our friends. To me it's an amalgamation of all of those things together that has led me to this place. I'm just the guy who happened to be sitting in the seat at the time. It's everything else that's going on around me that causes it to happen.